guys, Kim here, and you are tuned into Kim E, the Diabetes NP, a place where nurse practitioners can come and learn more about diabetes education and management. Now, today, we're going to be talking about something a little different. We're going to be talking about something that affects all nurse practitioners, even if you're not interested in diabetes. Shame on you if you are not. No, I'm just kidding. But today we're going to be talking about continuing education for nurse practitioners, and I am going to give you some tips over ways that you can recertify and just give you information on what the recertification process is. Now, you may be asking yourself, why are you talking about recertification and continuing education? Well, there's two reasons why I wanted to come on my channel and talk about this. For one, we're at the end of the year, and there's a cycle of nurse practitioners, many nurse practitioners that are gearing up to recertify. And some of those nurse practitioners are brand new nurse practitioners, and this will be the first time that they are recertifying. And so I am trying to provide, in everything that I do, I try to provide resources that I wish that I had, because when I recertified for the first time, I really didn't know what to expect. And it's kind of one of those things that all nurse practitioners talk about that have recertified before. That that first go around, you kind of don't know what you're doing, but you learn and you move on. But to me, I feel like, why do you have to go through that first time staggering through doing things last minute when you can just do it right the first time, you know? And so I wanted to come on here and just give my take on things that I do to make sure that I am staying up to date. Now, the second reason that I want to come on here and talk about continuing education and what the process of recertification is about is because I have launched the Diabetes Med Bootcamp. Now, this is a course that has been a labor of love. Many of you all who follow me know that about a year ago, I ended up doing videos over each individual med class, but I realized that people wanted more and people had more questions, and I was getting the same types of questions. So I thought the most efficient way to be able to answer everyone's questions, the frequently answered questions, was to compile it and make a course. And also with that, I went ahead and took it a step further, and I got the course certified for continuing education. So the Diabetes Med Bootcamp comes with 3.41 contact hours of continuing education, which 3.16 of those hours are pharmacology hours. Now, if you know anything about continuing education, if you've started to do continuing education, you know that getting pharmacology hours is not an easy thing. You can take courses and you can get a ton of contact hours, but the pharm portion, you really got to be intentional to get it. Now, you don't have to get as many pharmacology hours as contact hours, as we're going to be talking about soon, but you do have to get a good amount. Now, this course comes with 3 whole credit hours, okay? 3 credit hours and some change. And so I am going to link this, the course in the description box, but I do want to tell you just a little bit about what the course entails. The Diabetes Med Bootcamp is your need to know info over the anti-diabetic medications. I go through each individual drug class and we walk through what those drug classes are. My goal with this course is that we don't go over every inch of each drug. But again, it's a boot camp, so you're going to get a lot of information in a small amount of time. And I really wanted to highlight the things that you needed to know, the things you need to consider, your pearls of practice, your pearls of wisdom, your patient education when you're going on your way of prescribing medications to your diabetic patients. Now, again, this course comes with continuing education. Once you complete all of the modules, take a post test, and do the evaluation, you will then receive those credits. And so if you are interested, I will leave a link in the description box, and I thank you guys for supporting me. So let's get into it. Now, we are talking about continuing education for nurse practitioners and the recertification process. Now, first thing that I would like to tell you guys is that continuing education is required for all nurse practitioners. There's really no way that you can get around it. And I've had some conversations with new nurse practitioners that I don't believe that they understand the concept of what getting continuing education is. Now, as registered nurses, depending upon what state you are in, you were required to get every time you renewed your license, you had to also do continuing education. Now, the state that I am originally from, that I was born and raised in, as a registered nurse, I didn't have to do continuing education, okay? I didn't have to do that. I just basically renewed my license, paid the money, and then I was good. I'm just going to be honest with you. But I do realize that in different states that there is a requirement for registered nurses to obtain so many credit hours. Now, as nurse practitioners, not only do we have a license, meaning that you're licensed through your state or multiple states, depending upon what your situation is, we also have a certification. Now, this certification is that -C or that -BC that comes behind your nurse practitioner. So for me, I'm a family nurse practitioner, and I took the certification exam through American Association of Nurse Practitioners. So once I passed my test, the distinction, the letter, the credential that I have behind my name is NP-C, which stands for certified. Now, ANCC, if you took that test, you passed that test, the credential that's behind your name would be the NP-BC, which stands for Nurse Practitioner Board Certified. So those are your differences, and those are our two bodies that certify nurse practitioners. Now, within these certifying bodies, depending on your specialty, you might have took a family nurse practitioner test, or pediatric, or geriatric, adult. There's so many specialties, psych and mental health. But depending upon, both of those certifying bodies certify all the different specialties, okay? Now, depending on which body that you went through, which organization you went through, you may have slightly different requirements when it comes to recertifying. And so what I would like to do is I would like to break down what is required for AANP, and then I would like to break down what is required for ANCC. Okay, let's get into AANP, and I made sure to write this down because here's the thing, guys. Even when you recertify, you still need to be up to date with what is required of you. So right before I recertified a few years ago, they had and I'm certified through AANP. AANP had just updated their requirements. So they had went from requiring a certain amount of continuing education hours, but then they increased it by 25. Like and it was a certain group of people, if you had to recertify after this date, this was going to be the new requirement for you, and so on and such. And so you always want to make sure that you're staying up to date and you're clear as to what is required of you, especially as your deadline and your expiration date comes closer. So starting with AANP, as nurse practitioners, we have to recertify every 5 years. Okay. So think of it that this is the time you have 5 years to get whatever requirements that are required of you. And that's the time period that you're working in. So every 5 years, your certification will recertify. You would need to update that. Now with AANP, you have two options as to how you can recertify. Now, depending on who you are and what your preference is, you can pick one of these two, okay? Now, the first option is, for one, you have to have a minimal 1,000 hours in clinical practice. Now, this could mean that you're working and you're being employed and you're working 1,000 hours within that 5-year period. You can do this through volunteer hours. You can do this as a faculty. Now, with faculty, you can only do 500 hours max. Only 500 hours goes towards that 1,000 hours. So if you're a full-time faculty, then you can do up to 500 hours. If you're part-time, you're adjunct, and you do it a little bit here and there, those hours can go towards your 1,000 hours. Okay. So these are ways that you can get that 1,000 hours of clinical practice. Then next are your continuing education hours. So for AANP, you have to obtain 100 contact hours, which 25 of those hours are pharmacology. Now on the website, and maybe this is just me, but when I was recertifying, this actually confused me a bit. The way that it was worded, it confused me. And I got all the way to the end thinking that I was good, and I realized that I wasn't, and I actually had to call to get clarification. And so it actually kind of looks like 125 hours, because I thought 100 hours and 25 of those have to be farm. Well, then that means 75 of those hours are contact, 25 would be farm, which will give me 100. But actually, it really looks like, and I'm not sure if I'm explaining this right, but it actually seems like it's more like 125, 100 contact hours and 25 farm. Okay. So you want to keep that in mind. And here's a great thing about AANP. They have a tracker. So anything that you do through them, it automatically keeps a tally for you. So you actually see what it is. So if you're a member of AANP, you have access to their CE library. And every time you complete a course and pass the test, it automatically tallies it for you. And if by chance you do hours not with AANP, you can upload your different certificates and you can manually input it, and it'll keep track for you as well. And so that's a really great tool, and a lot of organizations that do continuing education hours also come with CE trackers. Now, here's another thing when it comes to continuing education as well. If you are precepting a NP student, if you precept 125 hours, that automatically gives you 25 contact hours. Now, let me break that down for you. 1 hour of precepting hours is not equivalent to 1 hour of contact hours. It's not like, okay, I precepted for 125 hours over 5 years, different students, and so now I'm going to get 125. No, it doesn't work like that. To get that 25 hours, you have to meet that full threshold of 125 hours of precepting. And for me, I precepted 2 students 2 years back to back, and one of them they were in different years of NP. So one of them needed like 120 hours. One of them needed like 90 hours. And they didn't do all of their hours with me. I was just one of their preceptors. So I didn't get all of that. But total, I think I ended up getting close to about 130 or 150. And because I met that 125 and that 125 hours, I was able to get a big chunk of 25 hours towards my contact hours. So the precepting hours are not 1 for 1. You don't get one precepting hour does not equal 1 contact hours. You have to meet that full 125 to get the 25 contact hours. And so when you do precept NP students, which I strongly suggest that you do, because we all know that people have to get their clinical hours. We also know that someone had to precept us, and it's your way of pouring back in the community that raised you up. The organizations, the universities that these students go to at the end of their hours, because clearly you're going to be logging their hours and stuff like that. At the end of the hour, at the end of their time with you, their university should give you like an official letterhead letter that says how many hours you precepted that student based on the hours that you guys logged. And you should keep that. And you can use that and upload that to the CE tracker as well. And that's part of how I got my hours. Now that's option one. That's your minimal 1,000 hours, and then your continuing education. Now your option number two is you can retake the certification exam. Now, I don't know many people who do this unless there is a reason why they have to, like their faculty or they have a business where they're helping people pass the certification exam. But the average nurse practitioner that I have come across, they don't retake the certification exam. I think it brings a lot of people anxiety. I know it brings me anxiety. I don't want to take another test. So I would rather just work and get my continuing education hours. But this is an option for you. So let's get into ANCC. Now, there is a slight difference between the two certifying boards, the two agencies, but it's not that much, okay? Now, realize we're all nurse practitioners. There's not one certification better than the other. I have gotten this question a lot, like, which one should I do? And to be quite honest with you, I've never had an employer, when I have interviewed, I have never had anyone to ask me which one I had. They just wanted to make sure that I had my license and I was certified. That was it, you know? So whichever one that is best for you, that's the one you should go for. So even with this, their requirements can't be too different from each other. There's a slight difference, but they're pretty much the same. So let's get into AANC. So like AANP, ANCC, you do have to recertify every 5 years. And again, this is not the board that I certify through. So if I misstate something, I do apologize. Please correct me if this is who certifies you, but this is what I found on the website. And currently, as of November 2020, this is what I found on the website. And I will do y'all a fair one. I will link the website for both of these organizations, just in case that I don't get everything, because it's a pretty lengthy explanation for both of them. And so don't just rely on me, go to just get it from the horse's mouth. And so I'm going to link both of their websites below where you can see what the certification process is for both. But anywho, so every 5 years you do have to recertify. Now the continuing education is this for them. You have to get 75 contact hours, which 25 of the hours need to be pharmacology. Now, this is the difference, is that you have to have more hours for AANP than you do for ANCC. But hold your horses, because it kind of works itself out, because you also, with ANCC, have to also complete one of their recertification categories. Now, on their website, you have to choose from one of like 8 categories of what you have done or you need to participate in. And the categories are things like, again, like AANP, practice hours of 1,000 hours. You can retake the exam as well. You can precept students, and this is, you have to do a minimum of 120, where with AANP it's 125. You can do research, you can publish articles, you can do evidence-based investigation, and there each category is defined more in depth, but you do have to get the continuing education hours as well as choose from one of the 8 categories that they have listed. And again, I am going to link that in the description box so you'll be able to go and see what your options are. I know as a new nurse practitioner, when I first graduated, really all I could really think about was getting done with school, passing my boards, getting a job, and trying to learn how to be an NP. And one of the things, this is a piece of advice that I definitely want to give to all of you newer nurse practitioners that have not yet recertified. Do not wait till the last minute to do this. The easy way to do this, to chip off all of these different requirements, is to do a little bit every year. Okay. Now, what a lot of people do, they go to conferences like the big AANP conference, where if you go for about 4 or 5 days, you can easily get anywhere between 30 to 40 hours for your time. Okay. or you can become a member of the AANP. Or I'm pretty sure ANCC has the same thing, where you can be a member and then you will have access to like unlimited CE courses that are like maybe 30 minutes, an hour, some 2, some 3. You'll have access to their CE library and have unlimited access. You can also purchase courses like mine, the Diabetes Med Bootcamp, who's certified. I don't think that I mentioned that. This course is certified through AANP. And there's many different agencies and businesses and other nurse-owned businesses that carry and provide continuing education. We all had to be certified through some governing board like AANP to be able to even give you continuing education. You just can't create a course and just say this is continuing education. No, somebody has to look over it, and your course and your materials have to stand up against the standard and policies of that organization. And because I'm certified through AANP, I only thought it was right for me to get my course certified through AANP. So if you were to take my course, you would definitely be able to easily get those hours, and they would be approved, and they would qualify. And so there are many organizations out there now, especially now that we're still in the pandemic and there's lots of virtual learning and online learning that's going on, that you can do a lot of continuing education in your free time. And so just like my course, many other courses are like that, where they're self-paced and you can go and get all of that. But I do want to just stress to you guys, do not wait till the last minute to do this, because there's no worse feeling than to know that you only have a month left to recertify, but you got like 50 hours that you need to get, and everything that you're sitting down to sit down and get, they're only 0.75 or 0.5 or maybe just 1 credit hour, and you got to get 50 within an hour. And it's like that. Even with the CE library, there's tons of courses that are in there, tons of classes that are in there, but each individual class doesn't come with a lot of hours. It's literally like 1.25, and that course may be an hour and a half long. So you got to also think about that. Chip off a little bit at a time. And lastly, my last tip that I want to let you guys know as well is make sure that you keep yourself organized. And the reason why I say that is because if you get all your stuff through AANP, yes, they have a tracker, but you can go and get your CEs through the American Medical Association. You can get your stuff through ANCC, the American Association of Physician Assistants. All of these are approved agencies, and so you're going to have to upload your stuff. So you're going to need to be able to keep track and record of everything and keep good records. Also, the agency that you're certified through can randomly audit you, and they will want to see more of your records. So it's very vital that you're keeping good records, because they may want you to actually show them your certificates and what you went through. And so what I try to do is I keep not only what I'm currently working on, the time period that I'm currently working on, but I also keep the past certification, the last cycle as well, because they can audit you from your past certification cycle. And so I keep a binder with all of my brochures as well as the certificates that I received. I print them out and I keep them, and I also save them on my computer, because I don't want to have any problems if AANP comes to calling. Okay, guys, that is all I have for you. I know that this video was much longer than I usually put out, but I did want to take some time to give some certification tips and tricks and how to go about recertifying. I wanted to really break down what continuing education was and why it is important to all nurse practitioners. And I also wanted to announce to you guys my Diabetes Med Bootcamp course. And again, I am going to link not only that course, but also AANP and ANCC's recertification process in the description box. Again, you have been sitting here with Kim E, the Diabetes NP, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.